words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. You may be seated. What a wonderful opportunity it is to be with you today. Young people, I'll be talking to you too, so it is not nap time. Even if you were at King's Dominion yesterday, which I heard about that, and you got back late last night, so bless your heart. You know, we have an incredible lesson today, and I have to admit to you before I get into the text, I'm so thrilled, Brent, for this opportunity, because one of the things I learned very early on from my parents was to maintain a grateful heart. I must say, girls, I'm 65. Do you know how many decades that is? Oh my goodness, I'm 65, and I do not understand what it means to be bored. I just don't get that. How can you be bored? You bored? Stay up and watch the sun set and the moon rise. You bored? Stand outside and listen for a bird. You didn't realize it, but they got a symphony going on right outside your window. You bored? Read a book and go to another part of the world with your imagination. How in the world can we ever be bored? I don't get that. Now, we have a story this morning about 10 lepers. 10. And in this account, I want to lift up some things for you to think about. Now, this is probably something that may be common to a lot of you. You ever had parents who made sure you were saying thank you for everything you ever received? My parents even had us write thank you notes. So believe me, you're better off. Some of you can send a text, thanks, or an email, boom, with some of those emojis on it, thank you. But no, we had to write notes. I learned to be grateful. Well, part of what that was rooted in is this. As someone made in the image and likeness of God, my life was a gift. And it was up to me what I did with it. I used to say to the students at St. Catherine's, the present is, open it. Open it. What are you doing with it? Well, here were 10 men who were lepers. They had a skin disease. And back in those days, they didn't know exactly. Anybody with a blemish or an abnormality on their skin was off a leper, even if that really wasn't what was going on. They didn't have the medical diagnosis abilities that we have today. So these 10 men were set apart from the community because of abnormalities in their skin. And guess what? They saw Jesus. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, but they saw him, and all 10 of them said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Mercy is what we receive when we are loved just because we're loved. Why? Because we're loved. But I did that wrong. No, you're loved. But I'm not this. No, you're loved. Just because you're loved. It's mercy. Well, Jesus told the 10, go and show yourself to the priest. Now that wasn't unusual because in order to come to worship in those days, you had to come, but you could not come if you had something that may be contagious or something that may hurt other people. So it wasn't a doctor who approved you as healed, but a priest. So Jesus said, go, show yourselves to the priest. When you're declared healed by the priest, you're back in the community. You can come participate in worship. So the 10 started going to find the priest to show themselves that they had been cleansed. But when they were on their way, one of them, who was a Samaritan, realized, I've been cleaned. Jesus had mercy. We asked Jesus for mercy and he did it. Nowadays we go, awesome. He did it. Now, this man came back and he was so excited that he was healed. He found Jesus to say thank you. So he looked to see his condition, and he saw that it had changed. So the time we put ourselves down so badly that we don't see our condition. Oh, I didn't get all A's, but I can still read. I didn't get all A's, but I can still do math. Oh, I lost the race, but I was in the race. I've never been one to understand why somebody was disappointed in a bronze medal. I've never been to the Olympics, you know? So what's the disappointment? But somehow we have these high ideas. You don't hear people going around and saying, we're in number 5. We're in number 5. It just, you know, it just doesn't happen. It's got to be one or nothing. And what I'm saying is, this man had nothing. But the 10 of them had at least enough faith to say, have mercy on us. And Jesus did. Oh my goodness. Well, one of the things I've learned from my parents, economically, we were very poor, but we were some rich people. Because if you ever wanted a hug, go hug my mama. And if you ever wanted a word of approval, go sit on my daddy's lap. I remember to this day, I came home for a visit. I was in my 40s, and Dad was sitting on the couch, so I just went and sat in his lap. He looked at me. He said, when are you going to ever stop that? And I said, I'll never stop being your little girl. Because that's what it was like in our home. Perfect? No, we had our issues too. But I knew we were rich in ways that money cannot buy. And so now I look and I think of this leper. I think about, gosh, what do I have in my hands? What do I see? And what I see is not lack. I learned this from my parents. I see ability. You see, when there's scarcity, when I lack somewhere, I see it as an opportunity for creativity. I can't do this geometry, all right? I need to do this geometry to get from point A to point B. Well, what do I need to do that gets me from point A to point B? Oh, perhaps if I sit down with someone who can help me understand how I learn, I may not get the A, but I'll sure do a lot better. That's where we look on the lack, F. No, I don't look at the F. I see the F as indication of lack. And I say, what in me will enable me to get this done? And one of the things I learned is I did not understand how I learned. And I sat down with somebody who helped me. Oh, you're this kind of learner. You need to do this. If you have a class that asks you to read 300 pages, you need to outline the page. It helped me so much. Well, that's a lot what happens with this leper. He recognizes he's clean, but he knows it's not just for himself. He goes back to give thanks, and Jesus says this, your faith has made you well. Well, wait a a minute, he's already healed. What is Jesus talking about? Jesus is saying, you asked me to have mercy and you are cleansed. But from the gratitude in your attitude, you are now whole. And the wholeness that you have will empower you to share with others. It's the difference between having it and having it going on. He recognized that God was at work and mercy was transformational. Does that make sense? You get that? So see, if you have a challenge, don't focus on the challenge. Don't focus on the lack. Even see the lack as an opportunity for growth. The greatest creativity that has ever come from this mind and these hands has been birthed in scarcity. The greatness of this story is in the midst of that broken emptiness that the 10 lepers lived. They had at least enough faith. Do you think God will have mercy? Well, look, as bad as we're off, let's just try it. Yeah, Jesus, have mercy. And Jesus did. But this one recognized, oh my goodness, I don't deserve this. Jesus is awesome. I got to go back and tell him, thank you. And so this lesson is letting us know a few things. I believe stewardship is a recognition of what's in our hand, a seeing of what God has given us. So years ago, when I worked for the federal government, there would be times that I would get what they would call a bonus addition to my pay. And it usually had to do with job performance. And so when I got the first bonus, I was doing fine on my living. I was paying rent and I was doing things were okay. So I asked God, how can I use this bonus, this unexpected money? Well, I put a part in savings, which you should, but then I also said, oh, I've been wanting to give to Operation Smile. I've been wanting to give to an effort that will change a life. Operation Smile changes lives. And I was able to make a donation so that children could have surgery on cleft palates and have their lives changed. You see, I see anything that may be labeled abundance as opportunity to give thanks. This man's healing was exceeding abundant above all he could ask or think, and he turned to God and gave thanks. I'm saying today, when I look at the resources that are in my hands, opportunities that have come sometimes literally out of the wall, I give thanks to God and say, oh, maybe now if I make a donation to feed more, someone will have a cheerful Thanksgiving. I mean, that's how I think. And it came from my parents, Oscar and Dorothy White of Knoxville, Tennessee, who raised me to be grateful and raised me to be aware that life is a whole lot more than just me. This leper had a heart that thought beyond himself. And when he saw the gift of healing, I can be a member of the community again. Maybe somebody will hug me again. Maybe somebody will be glad I came by to visit. Maybe people won't turn away. Even I can take the mask off my face because God has had mercy on me. And if God has mercy on you, is it too much to ask that we have mercy on others? This is a story about giving thanks. And it boils down to one sentence. The heart of the matter is the matter of the heart.